Stop. Just stop. Africa just broke free. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Last night. Right now. Captain Ibrahim Traore took a pen and crushed 500 years of Western control. $2.1 billion. Gone. Redirected. Out of France's hands, out of their chains. For decades, they dictated everything. Our trade, our labor, our markets. They called it partnership. We called it theft. We worked. They profited. We starved. They smiled. But that story, dead, finished, shattered, in Beijing, under cameras and silence. A deal was signed. Zero tariffs, direct trade, African resources for African people. Not Wall Street billionaires. Not Parisian boardrooms. The old empire is panicking. The shockwaves, rolling through Europe, the United States, every corridor of power that ever thought they owned us. And the question isn't if Africa can rise anymore. The question is, who dares stop it? Who dares touch a continent that finally remembers its power? Burkina Faso, a landlocked nation they once called hopeless, now stands taller than it ever has. Fields that produced nothing for the people are now gold mines of opportunity. Shea butter, once sold raw to the French for pennies, is leaving African ports for Chinese factories, where profits stay in African hands. Villages are humming with machines, markets are buzzing with energy, and young people who dreamed of fleeing to Europe are building futures at home. Captain Ibrahim Traore is not just a leader, he is a symbol, a spark, a man who understood that freedom is more than words. It is trade, it is technology, it is control over your own destiny. For years, the West whispered threats, sanctions, tariffs, closed markets. They tried to scare Africa into submission. They forgot one thing. We have numbers too. 1.4 billion people. Energy, talent, vision, and a leader willing to act where others hesitated. In just 72 hours, the French and American threats collided with the reality of the Chinese partnership. Markets opened. Profits surged. Jobs multiplied. Women, young engineers, farmers, traders all found a new rhythm, a new dignity. They no longer sell scraps, they build wealth. They no longer wait for permission, they create it. And this is only the beginning. Mali, Niger, Chad, Guinea, they are watching, learning, planning. A domino effect is underway, and the old powers cannot stop it. Captain Traore's pen did not just sign a trade deal, it wrote a new chapter for the continent. One where Africa's resources serve Africa, not foreign banks. One where African ambition meets African opportunity. Ask yourself, how long can France pretend to rule from Paris when the heart of Africa beats on its own terms? How long can Western powers lecture about partnership when African leaders are proving independence works? Captain Ibrahim Traore did not ask for permission. He acted, and in his actions, he has awakened a continent. Tonight, as you read this, the corridors of Western power are in panic. Boardrooms in Paris and Washington are buzzing with fear. Analysts scramble to understand a new reality. But here, in Burkina Faso, factories hum, markets bustle, and children dream of a future. Their parents never dared to imagine. Africa is not waiting anymore. Africa is building. And so the question hangs over us all. Will we follow the old masters? Or will we rise with Traore? Will we cling to dependency? Or will we seize our destiny? The answers will define a continent. And the first roar of that answer, it came last night. Stop. Africa just moved while the world slept. Captain Ibrahim Traore did not whisper. He acted, in the dead of night, in rooms far from our villages. Our decision worth $1 billion was made. Not charity, not favor, power, pure, undeniable power. And it landed in African hands. Burkina Faso, often overlooked, often dismissed, was the stage for history. For decades, the French Empire had dictated its trade, its markets, even its dreams. They claimed to be partners while keeping the people in poverty. They set prices, limited growth, and profited off African labor. But all that changed in a single stroke of Traore's pen. In Beijing, Cameras clicked, papers shuffled, and signatures were made. Zero tariffs, guaranteed trade, advanced technology transfers. A future previously barred by Europe's iron grip was now within reach. Captain Traore had not only broken contracts, he had broken chains. For the first time in modern African history, a trade agreement was designed to be immune to Western sabotage, payments in Chinese yuan, shipping through Chinese-controlled ports, insurance covered by Chinese state companies, international arbitration, not French courts. Every possible lever of control the old powers once had was removed. Inside Burkina Faso, the effects were immediate. Shea butter processors, long trapped in a cycle of poverty, now ran their own operations, selling directly to Chinese buyers at fair market prices. Villages that once exported raw materials for pennies were now producing finished goods for profits that stayed at home. Women-led cooperatives, young engineers managed quality control, and families reclaimed dignity. Jobs tripled, incomes soared, education and health investments grew. The nation was alive, with energy it had never known. Yet outside, the old powers panicked. Paris, Washington, London. They could not comprehend a world where their control evaporated overnight. Sanctions, propaganda, military exercises, cyber attacks, all were deployed to stop this momentum. But every attempt only strengthened the resolve of Burkina Faso and its allies. Captain Traore's strategy anticipated every move. Every sanction had a counter. Every threat, a shield. Every attack, a leçon, and the eyes of Africa were watching. Mali, Niger, Chad, Guinea. They saw the impossible achieved. They saw the blueprint for independence. The dominoes were lined up, and the first one had fallen. Across the continent, young Africans, once told they had no future, were now dreaming boldly. Social media buzzed with images of factories, fields, ports, and technology centers. Conversations turned to opportunity. Conversations turned to power. Conversations turned to action. Captain Traore was no longer just a leader. He had become a symbol, a spark igniting a continental awakening. His audacity proved a truth, long denied. African nations do not need to choose between sovereignty and development. They can have both. And the world had just been reminded that the balance of power is no longer theirs to dictate, but power attracts enemies. Intelligence reports streamed in, Operation Trade Disruption, cyber attacks, financial blockades, assassination plots. Western powers would use every weapon they possessed to crush any example of African independence. Every calculated strike was a test, and the stakes were life or death not only for Traore, but for the vision of a liberated continent. Yet inside the nation, there was unity. Citizens, young and old, rallied around this vision. Economic independence became a national mission. Stories of transformation spread. Women earning wages that could educate their children. Engineers innovating with new technology. Villages building local factories, all signs that the deal was not just changing markets, it was changing minds, hearts, and futures. And in the quiet moments, when Traore reviewed reports late at night, he knew this was only the beginning. The first domino had fallen, but the storm ahead would be relentless. Forces with centuries of influence would not relent easily. They would strike back, harder and faster. But Captain Ibrahim Traore was ready, and so was Africa. The question now hangs in the air like a silent thunderclap. Who will dare to stop a continent that has learned to fight with pen, trade, and vision? The pen has moved. The empires tremble, and the revolution has begun. In the coming days, Western powers plan their most aggressive response, yet a move designed to test Traore's resolve and Africa's unity. But what if the enemy is not just outside? What if it is within? The night after the Beijing deal, Burkina Faso was not asleep. In a secure compound outside Ouagadougou, Captain Ibrahim Traore convened his inner circle. The room was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Not celebration, not relief. Strategy. Every move counted. Every word measured. Around the table sat Dr. Fatou Kababori, the trade minister, with a Harvard PhD, who returned home to serve her people, Colonel Adou Sanfo, the trade security coordinator who had built a network strong enough to withstand espionage, Fatou Corre, the agricultural engineer overseeing quality control. Each one carried knowledge, responsibility, and an unspoken understanding. They were the guardians of a revolution that could not fail. Traore spoke first, voice low, but cutting through the silence. They will strike. Predictably. They always do. But we have built more than a contract. We have built resilience. Do not underestimate the desperation of those who lose control. His eyes scanned the room, landing on each face. Every dollar, every shipment, every partnership it is. A chessboard. And we are thinking 10 moves ahead. Kababo nodded. The markets are open. Captain, Chinese buyers are ready. Factories are running. But the French and American sanctions, they are coming. We must anticipate supply chain blockades, financial restrictions, and propaganda campaigns. Every report we receive must be verified. Every step protected. Adu Sanfo leaned forward. We have mapped their likely strategies. Cyber intrusions, bank freezers, manipulation of the CFA franc. They will try to isolate us. But the deal was designed to be untouchable. Payments bypass traditional systems. Ports bypass their control. Legal jurisdiction outside their courts. Every loophole they once used has been closed. Fatukore spoke quietly, almost as if afraid to break the tension. On the ground, processors and villages are ready. But morale depends on trust. People must believe that this is permanent, that we are not repeating history, that we are not trading one master for another. Traore's hand rested on the table. Trust is built in action. Every shipment that reaches Shanghai without interference, every shea butter processor, earning fair wages, every factory producing technology locally, that is how trust is proven. Our people will see results. That is our strongest weapon. The conversation turned to logistics. Every route, every shipment, every insurance certificate was scrutinized. No detail was too small. Adu Sanfo outlined contingency plans for drones monitoring ports, rapid response teams for cyber attacks, and secure communication lines with Chinese partners. Kababo projected trade flows and revenue forecasts. Fatukore reviewed quality assurance protocols. Each plan was a layer of protection, a barrier against the predictable chaos the West would unleash. But there was another layer, human. Traore understood that control of hearts and minds was as critical as control of trade. Young engineers and women entrepreneurs were identified as local champions, trusted to maintain operations and inspire confidence in their communities. Every village was connected to the broader mission, every family tied to the vision of economic sovereignty. The revolution was both financial and social. As the night stretched, a map was unfurled. Pins and notes marked every shipment, factory, and trade route. Lines connected Burkina Faso to Beijing, Ghana, and regional partners. A web of interdependency, designed not just to succeed, but to survive. Assault. Traore's finger traced the path of the first container, leaving the port of Tama, heading straight to Shanghai, bypassing centuries of control. Yet, even in this meticulous planning, shadows loomed. Intelligence reports hinted at clandestine operations targeting Burkina Faso's allies. Western powers had not forgotten. Plans for Operation Trade Disruption were already in motion. A multi-front assault designed to cripple the country's newfound independence. Every member of the inner circle understood the stakes. Every mistake could be fatal. Traore finally stood, breaking the silence. We have done what no one else dared. But the storm has just begun. They will push. They will threaten. They will try to divide us from within and without. Our unity, or discipline, our vision, that is our shield. The room was silent again. Not from fear, from understanding. They were the first line of defense, the guardians of a bold experiment that could reshape Africa. And in that silence, the weight of history pressed down. Outside the compound, in shadows too dark to see, agents were moving. Operation Trade Disruption had begun. The first strike was imminent. But who among them would be the first to break? The ink was barely dry on the Beijing agreement when alarms went off in Paris. Boardrooms, corridors of power, financial analysts everywhere. Panic rippled like wildfire. Captain Ibrahim Traore had done the unthinkable. $1 billion diverted. African trade liberated, and France's decades-long grip shattered in a single stroke. In Paris, whispers became frantic calls. Minister demanded explanations. Executives scrambled to protect investments. Analysts projected catastrophic losses. How could a landlocked West African country, long dismissed as insignificant, destabilize European markets overnight? The answer was simple. Traore had exploited every weakness, every loophole, and every overconfidence they had relied upon for centuries. Meanwhile, in Washington, Treasury officials debated sanctions. 50% tariffs were imposed on shea butter exports, an attempt to crush Burkina Faso's second-largest industry. It was a clear message: submit, or watch your economy collapse. But 72 hours later, China countered with a $1 billion trade agreement. No quotas, no restrictions, no political conditions. The message from Burkina Faso was louder than any decree. We will not bend. Across the continent, leaders were watching. Mali announced a $1.8 billion mining partnership with China, reclaiming gold reserves long exploited by France. Niger signed a uranium processing deal worth $3 billion. Chad revealed plans for a $2 billion oil refinery. Guinea unveiled a $4 billion bauxite processing facility. The dominoes were falling, one after another, with Burkina Faso as the first to tip the line. In the villages, ordinary Africans were witnessing history in motion. Traders, farmers, and young engineers saw the tangible results of Traore's audacity. Raw materials now transformed into finished goods. Factories buzzed. Markets thrived. Youth, once planning to flee to Europe, were now building businesses at home. Dignity returned to hands long shackled by exploitation. Western powers responded with a frenzy of tactics. Economic warfare escalated. Banking restrictions, sanctions on officials, propaganda campaigns, and coordinated media blitzes across CNN, BBC, and Reuters. Think tanks published warnings of debt-trap diplomacy. Universities produced studies condemning African-Chinese partnerships, and social media campaigns seeded doubts in communities. Yet, every move was anticipated. The agreement was bulletproof. Payments in yuan, Chinese-managed ports, state-backed insurance, and international arbitration outside Western courts. Colonel Adu Sanfo summarized the breakthrough: they can sanction us, they can threaten us, but our goods will reach Chinese markets. Our people will prosper, and nothing they do can stop it. Across Africa, young leaders and citizens began to grasp the seismic shift. Social media exploded. Hashtags tracking the trade pivot garnered 890 million impressions in a single month. Economic education content spread like wildfire. Africans were learning, for the first time, that they had alternatives to Western control. Enrollment in international business programs soared. Mandarin Chinese became the fastest-growing foreign language in schools. Students studied in China, entrepreneurs launched import-export businesses, and entire communities embraced a new model of self-determination. Even global economists were forced to revise their forecasts. China became Africa's largest trading partner, surpassing Europe and the United States combined. African markets, once tethered to Western whims, now found stability and growth in partnerships rooted in respect and shared benefit. And yet, the storm had only begun. Western powers were mobilizing covert operations, cyber attacks, supply chain disruption, financial manipulation, and political interference were planned to destabilize Burkina Faso and its allies. Intelligence reports warned of potential assassination plots against Traore and key advisors, but the first domino had fallen. The world had seen what was possible. Captain Ibrahim Traore had ignited a continental awakening, but every victory carried risk. Every success painted a target. And as governments recalculated, armies repositioned, and media narratives shifted, one question loomed: could Africa withstand the backlash? Could the unity Traore built inside his nation survive the external assault? In the shadows of European capitals, secret operations were being set in motion, a coordinated strike designed to test the strength of Burkina Faso's new alliances. But what if the real danger was not outside, but from those who doubted their own continent's courage? The world thought it could crush Burkina Faso. They thought sanctions, tariffs, and threats would bend the country to its knees. They thought Europe and the United States still held the levers of power. They were wrong. Inside Ouagadougou, Captain Ibrahim Traore did not panic. He moved, swiftly, decisively. A network of trade, technology, and security measures had been laid long before the ink dried on the Beijing agreement. Every shipment, every financial transaction, every legal framework had a backup, a safeguard, a shield against sabotage. Colonel Adousanfo coordinated the first wave of defensive measures. Surveillance drones scanned the borders. Shipping routes were rerouted through Chinese-controlled ports in Ghana and East Africa. Digital systems were hardened against cyber intrusions. Trade security protocols ensured that no financial blockage could halt the flow of goods. Every possible strike from the West had been anticipated and countered. Meanwhile, Dr. Fatou Kababor liaised with Chinese partners, ensuring financing, technology transfers, and logistical support continued, uninterrupted. Factories in villages, once vulnerable to Western interference, now ran on Chinese machinery, producing shea butter, agricultural tools, and advanced manufacturing components. Supply chains were resilient. Orders moved smoothly. Confidence grew. But Traore understood the battle was not only logistical, it was psychological. He gathered his ministers, engineers, and village leaders in a secure room. They will try to scare our people, he said. They will spread lies. They will promise the world to divide us. But we must show them that Africa cannot be intimidated. Our strength lies in our unity, our vision, and our courage. Across the nation, ordinary citizens were already feeling the impact. Shea butter cooperatives tripled their production. Young engineers implemented 3D-printed agricultural tools. Villages invested in local schools and clinics. The numbers spoke louder than propaganda. Income rose by 280%. Employment in processing facilities surged 450%. And women's participation in trade jumped from 23% to 71%. Every success was a strike against the narratives of fear. Yet, in Europe, panic escalated. Paris scrambled military advisors. Washington expanded sanctions. Corporate boycotts and media campaigns multiplied. But each attack was met with a calculated African response. Adousanfo's team intercepted attempts to block Chinese payments. Kababor's ministry ensured shipments reached China unhindered. Traore coordinated emergency communications to keep morale high and misinformation at bay. The young engineers and traders on the ground were the unsung heroes. From Ouagadougou to Koudougou, they kept operations running, proving that African ingenuity, coupled with careful planning, could outmaneuver decades of Western dominance. Each success emboldened other nations watching, amplifying the continental domino effect. Even the Chinese partners were impressed. Their investment was not charity. It was partnership. They shared technology openly. Automated packaging, digital banking systems, 5G connectivity, solar manufacturing, and wind electrification. For the first time, African nations were not merely suppliers, they were innovators, creators, and equals in global trade. But Traore knew the real challenge was ahead. Operation Trade Disruption was not over. Reports indicated that Western powers were now coordinating proxy groups, planning cyber attacks, and preparing to fund political opposition within Burkina Faso. The coming weeks would test every safeguard, every strategy, every ounce of resolve. He convened his inner circle once more. They will escalate, he said. We will escalate too, but in ways that strengthen our people, not weaken them. Every challenge is an opportunity. Every threat is a test, and we will pass them all. Outside the capital, villages and towns were quietly preparing. Leaders trained local youth, reinforced communications, and monitored the supply chains. Communities were no longer passive observers, they were active participants in the revolution. Every shipment that reached Shanghai, every factory producing locally, every child learning technology was a counterstrike in its own right. And yet, the tension never left the room. Even as Burkina Faso thrived, shadows loomed. Intelligence hinted at Western agents moving closer, preparing operations designed to sow doubt and fear within the nation. Traore and his team understood one truth: victory on paper does not guarantee victory in reality. As the sun set over Ouagadougou, a coded message arrived. Western operatives had infiltrated a neighboring country, plotting to destabilize Burkina Faso from within. The first true test of Traore's counterstrike was about to begin, but who among his allies would falter when the storm hit the homeland? The world outside Burkina Faso's borders was in chaos. Paris, London, and Washington had shifted into overdrive. Every strategy, every contingency, every plan was now focused on one goal: to stop Captain Ibrahim Traore and crush the Burkina Faso model before it could spread. Sanctions intensified. European banks froze accounts linked to Chinese trade. Shipping companies refused to move African goods. Insurance providers cancelled coverage for all Burkina Faso shipments. The financial noose tightened. But Traore's foresight had already built bridges around it. Payments flowed in yuan. Routes bypassed Western ports. Legal jurisdiction fell under neutral arbitration. Every anticipated blockade failed before it could strangle trade. Yet the psychological war was underway. Western media flooded African airwaves with warnings of debt traps and economic chaos. Think tanks published endless studies predicting disaster. Social media campaigns manipulated algorithms to create fake opposition, fueling doubt and fear in communities. Even international NGOs received funding to promote narratives of dependency and failure. Inside Ouagadougou, Traore convened his advisors. They want to scare our people, to divide us, to make us doubt ourselves, he said, voice tight with focus. Our counterstrike is unity, clarity, and visibility. Every shipment that reaches China, every village thriving, every factory producing, we turn their lies into proof of our strength. Dr. Fatou Kababore detailed the diplomatic front. Neighboring nations are being pressured. Mali, Niger, Chad, Guinea, they are receiving calls, warnings, incentives to isolate Burkina Faso. We must counter with transparency, showing that partnership with China benefits Africa, not foreign powers. Colonel Adou Sanfo outlined the security measures. Surveillance intensified. Intelligence networks expanded, and local militias were trained to protect supply chains. Even remote villages had communication lines to the capital. Every point in the network was monitored, every threat logged. They will test us, he said, but we are ready. Their first moves are predictable. Their desperation shows. At the grassroots level, ordinary citizens felt the pressure. Western influence tried to instill fear, questioning the stability of Chinese partnerships and the durability of local factories. But the people had seen the change with their own eyes. Income from shea butter tripled. Youth employment surged. Women ran trade cooperatives. Technology centers hummed with innovation. Every visible success was a shield against manipulation. Meanwhile, Traore turned his attention to continental diplomacy. African leaders were watching. The domino effect he ignited could inspire a wave of economic independence, but only if solidarity held. Letters, calls, and private meetings with neighboring heads of state emphasized resilience and mutual support. We are not alone. Traore reminded his team, if they strike one of us, they strike all. Unity is our strongest defense. Yet the threats escalated further. Intelligence indicated that Western powers were moving proxy forces near Burkina Faso's borders, preparing operations to destabilize trade routes and create internal dissent. Cyber attacks targeted government database. Attempts to manipulate the CFA franc threatened regional economies, and even within Burkina Faso, whispers of doubt began to surface. Fear, seeded by propaganda. Fear that old patterns of dependency could return. Traore's eyes scanned the reports. Unwavering. Every fear is a challenge. Every doubt is an opportunity. We will prove that African leadership can outmaneuver centuries of control. Our strategy must be relentless, precise, and visible. If they attack, we respond. If they lie, we reveal truth. If they threaten, we show strength. Every move counts. Every moment matters. Communities, too, became part of the counter-strike. Markets showcased local goods. Villages documented trade successes. And youth groups shared real stories of prosperity on social media. The people themselves became a living barrier against misinformation. A grassroots shield no sanctions could penetrate. And as the night fell over Ouagadougou, the capital held its breath. Every shipment, every factory, every heartbeat in the nation represented defiance against the storm gathering just beyond the borders. The pressure from Europe and America was immense, but so was Africa's resolve. Across a shadow European corridor, a high-level meeting concluded. A coordinated operation was being greenlit, targeting not just trade and finance, but key individuals in Traore's government. The first strike was imminent. The question remained, could Burkina Faso withstand the combined fury of centuries-old powers, or would cracks begin to appear from within? The night was alive with secrets. Beyond Burkina Faso's borders, operatives moved in silence, invisible, but everywhere. Europe and the United States had unleashed a web of covert operations, cyber attacks, financial manipulation, and intelligence missions, all aimed at destabilizing the first African nation to defy their control. Every shadow was a threat, every whisper, a warning. Inside Ouagadougou, Captain Ibrahim Traore paced his command room. Every report, every intercepted message, every signal was scrutinized. His inner circle worked like a machine. Colonel Adu Sanfo tracked foreign movements and monitored trade routes. Dr. Fatou Kababore coordinated with Chinese partners, ensuring funds and technology flowed uninterrupted. Fatou Kore supervised local factories, verifying production and shipment. Every cog in the system had to function flawlessly. Failure was not an option. Yet, shadows crept within. Propaganda seeded doubts in villages. Trusted allies received subtle threats. Western-backed groups attempted to infiltrate communities, bribing or intimidating minor officials, aiming to sow mistrust. Even among senior advisors, whispers of fear and hesitation began to circulate. One misstep could unravel months of planning. Traore knew it. The inner circle knew it. And the people would feel it first. Adu Sanfo's eyes scanned the encrypted messages. They've activated proxy groups in neighboring countries. Border patrols are compromised. Sabotage is imminent within 72 hours. He paused, scanning the room. We must preempt their moves, or they will strike where we are weakest. Kababor responded sharply. Defense alone is not enough. Every attack we anticipate, every rumor we counter, every shipment that reaches China is a statement. We must turn their fear into our strength. Africa cannot be coerced by intimidation or lies. Factories hummed, villages buzzed, and the digital networks of Burkina Faso became both shield and sword. Cyber defense teams intercepted attempted intrusions into trade databases. Satellite links ensured continuous communication. Local youth were trained to monitor social media, detect misinformation, and report anomalies. Every citizen became a participant in national defense. The nation itself had become a living fortress. Meanwhile, in shadowed offices across Europe, intelligence officers plotted the next strike. Operation Trade Disruption was entering its second phase. Economic sabotage, media campaigns, and targeted political pressure would converge to fracture leadership and public confidence. Every move was meticulously planned, every threat rehearsed. They underestimated one thing: the coordination, discipline, and resolve inside Burkina Faso. Traore turned his attention to his inner circle, sensing tension rising. Fear will be our enemy if we let it, he said. Doubt spreads faster than bullets. Every question, every hesitation must be met with clarity. Our people must see results, not rumors. He paused, letting the weight of history settle on the room. Our unity is our strongest weapon. If we falter internally, the shadows win without lifting a finger. Inside the villages, ordinary citizens were already defying fear. Shea butter cooperatives continued production. Engineers maintained equipment with relentless precision. Schools and health centers operated without pause. The people had seen transformation firsthand, and refused to surrender it to foreign intimidation. Confidence spread from village to village, creating a silent, unbreakable backbone of support. Traore's mind returned to the human element. Young engineers and female entrepreneurs were the unsung defenders. They managed local operations, communicated progress, and reinforced morale. Their successes were proof that Africa could act decisively and independently. Every shipment that reached Shanghai, every product exported without interference. Every village thriving was a strike back at the powers attempting to control them. And yet, the tension never left. Even with precautions, shadows could strike at any moment. Intelligence hinted at planned operations to infiltrate the capital, disrupt shipments, and challenge the loyalty of key officials. Traore's calm exterior masked the urgency of preparation. Every advisor, soldier, and factory manager understood that vigilance had become permanent. Every heartbeat mattered. In Europe, panic was building. Military strategists debated covert insertion of agents. Economic planners coordinated with banks to destabilize currency flows. And media consultants prepared psychological operations aimed at breaking public confidence in Burkina Faso's leadership. The orchestration was sophisticated, multi-layered, and relentless. But every move met a prepared, resilient response in Burkina Faso. Traore walked among his people late into the night, observing factories, warehouses, and training centers. Every success, every smiling face, every industrious worker was a counterstrike. The revolution was tangible, unstoppable, and deeply human. Young Africans absorbed the lessons of autonomy and resilience, and the psychological domino effect across the continent was undeniable. As the first light touched Ouagadougou, a coded alert arrived. A breach had been detected inside the supply chain. Critical trade information had been intercepted by unknown operatives. The counterstrike had begun, but who had betrayed them from within? And what would be the cost? The sun had barely risen over Ouagadougou when the first real threat landed. Not in headlines, not in warnings, in silence. Shadows moved, and the assault began. European proxies had infiltrated key border points. Satellite feeds indicated tampering with shipments bound for China. Cyber attacks targeted logistics software. Every detail of Burkina Faso's trade network was being tested, and the operation was precise, cold, and relentless. Inside the capital, Captain Ibrahim Traore's command room erupted with controlled urgency. Colonel Adu Sanfo scanned the incoming intelligence. They've struck at the western corridor, 2 shipments delayed. Border checkpoints compromised. They are probing weaknesses. Every second counted. Every delay could ripple into catastrophe. Traore's voice cut through the tension. This is not panic. This is the moment we prove what Africa can do when it refuses to bow. His eyes scanned the team. Deploy countermeasures immediately. Verify every shipment. Reinforce border security. Activat local. Surveillance. And above all, maintain morale. The people must see strength, not fear. Dr. Fatou Kababore coordinated with Chinese partners, confirming alternate ports and backup routes. We can reroute via Ghana. Payments are secure. Factories continue production. Nothing halts trade. If we act decisively. Her words carried the weight of urgency and reassurance simultaneously. Outside the command center, villages and towns were already mobilizing. Young engineers rerouted trucks, repaired equipment, and reinforced digital networks. Shea butter cooperatives adjusted schedules and worked double shifts. Schools and clinics operated uninterrupted. Every action, large or small, was part of a nationwide counterstrike. Yet the psychological front was even more dangerous. Propaganda messages flooded, radio waves and social media, warning of economic collapse, failed Chinese partnerships, and internal betrayal. Fear crept quietly. But the people had seen tangible change, factories producing goods, shipments reaching foreign markets, and communities thriving. Confidence became a weapon. Traore turned to his inner circle. Every rumor, every threat, every delay, turn it into proof of our resilience. If they attack, we adapt. If they lie, we expose it. If they threaten, we act. Fear will never be our guide. Colonel Adu Sanfo, reported escalating sabotage attempt, minor fires at storage facilities, intercepted shipments, rerouted by unknown agents, and tampering with communications lines. They are testing us. They will escalate if we falter, he said, eyes fixed on the holographic maps. Fatukore, overseeing factories and quality control, added, some workers are scared. They hear rumors, but most are inspired. Every shipment that leaves on time becomes proof we are untouchable. They cannot stop us if we move as one. Traore's mind flashed to the human cost. Leaders, engineers, women, entrepreneurs. They were risking everything, not just their jobs, but their safety, to defend a vision. Every shipment reaching Shanghai, every product exported without interference. Every village thriving was a strike back at centuries of exploitation. Across the continent, Africa was watching young leaders, students, and entrepreneurs track developments online. The domino effect was no longer theoretical, it was visible. Success inspired imitation. Neighboring nations began contemplating similar agreements. Realizing independence was achievable, but shadows lingered. Intelligence hinted at deeper infiltrations agents embedded in local networks. Allies compromised. Internal dissent. Seeded by fear. Every decision carried weight. Every second mattered. One misstep could unravel months of careful planning. Traore convened a final briefing before nightfall. Tonight, we show the world that Africa is not fragile, that our people, ingenuity, and unity are stronger than centuries of control. Every shipment that reaches its destination, every factory that hums with activity, every village that thrives, these are victories, and we will multiply them. In Europe, plans continued to escalate. Military strategists debated covert insertion of agents, economic planners, coordinated currency manipulations, and media consultants prepared psychological operations aimed at shaking public confidence. The orchestration was multi-layered, sophisticated, relentless, yet each move met a prepared, resilient response in Burkina Faso. The first strike had been repelled, but the battle was far from over. Europe and the United States had demonstrated they would not yield without a fight. The war for Africa's independence was immediate, real, and deadly. As darkness fell over Ouagadougou, a new alert arrived. A second, more aggressive operation was being coordinated from multiple fronts, targeting both trade and leadership. The question remained, who would hold firm when the storm intensified? And what would be the first sacrifice? Night had settled over Ouagadougou, but the city pulsed with tension and determination. Captain Ibrahim Traore knew the real battle was no longer abstract, it was here, inside hearts, minds, and every heartbeat of his people. The first strike had tested their networks, but it had also revealed their resilience. This time, the storm was approaching in full force, and Burkina Faso had to be ready. Inside the command center, Traore reviewed reports from every district, every village, every factory, every shipment, every route, every operation. They survived the first wave, but survival is not enough. We must thrive under pressure. Colonel Adu Sanfo pointed to holographic maps of real-time shipments. Multiple border points are under pressure. Proxies have been spotted near the northern corridor. Cyber attacks are intensifying. They aim to overwhelm us simultaneously. Dr. Fatou Kababore leaned over her terminal. We've activated community liaisons and local coordinators across all 13 districts. Each village now reports anomalies directly to Central Command. Factories and cooperatives have contingency protocols. Real-time verification ensures nothing is lost. Even misinformation is countered immediately. Traore's gaze shifted to Fatukore. Overseeing factories and rural workshops, redundancy is key. Every shipment must have a backup. Every village must support another. Every port must be ready if another is blocked. If they think they can isolate us, they are mistaken. Outside, the nation was already mobilizing. Villages communicated through secure radio channels. Young engineers monitored energy grids, repaired vehicles, and reinforced digital networks. Shea butter cooperatives worked through the night, processing more goods than ever before. Women led trading groups, routing products efficiently, Children and students documented the activity, broadcasting successes on social platforms to counter propaganda. Every action, every heartbeat was part of a nationwide counterstrike. The psychological dimension was equally critical. Propaganda still spread fear, warnings of economic collapse, failed Chinese partnerships, and internal betrayal. But the people, having seen tangible change, refused to yield. Factories producing goods, shipments reaching foreign markets, and communities thriving created an unshakable morale. Confidence became a weapon. Within the inner circle, tension lingered. Intelligence reports hinted at possible infiltration within the capital. Minor doubts and fears whispered among advisors, but Traore addressed them directly. The storm tests strength, not fear. Every shipment that reaches China, every factory that hums without pause, every village that thrives. These are our proof of resilience. Doubt has no place here. Adu Sanfo highlighted the logistics. Cybersecurity teams are monitoring intrusions. Alternate routes for shipments are active. Villages are linked in a mesh network for rapid communication. Even if one node falls, the system remains operational. Their attack is coordinated, but so are we. Traore nodded, internalizing every piece of information. Trust is earned in action. Every success reinforces belief. Every challenge strengthens resolve. Our people will see that independence is real and achievable. Meanwhile, the Western powers continued their preparations. Meetings in European capitals, covert briefings in Washington, and intelligence operations across West Africa were orchestrated to disrupt trade and leadership simultaneously. Their coordination was sophisticated and multi-layered, but Burkina Faso anticipated each phase. The nation had become both shield and sword, its citizens active participants in defending sovereignty. Inside villages, the response was remarkable. Young engineers improvised on equipment, ensuring factories stayed operational. Women entrepreneurs organized shifts, rerouted exports, and maintained order under pressure. Students and teachers documented every logistical success, spreading proof across social media to counter fear campaigns. Every action became a visible act of resistance. Traore walked through the command center one last time before midnight. Voice low but firm. We survived the first strike. The storm intensifies, but we remain steadfast. Every shipment, every factory, every village thriving. These are victories, and we will multiply them. Africa is awake, and we cannot be stopped. As midnight approached, a coded alert flashed across Traore's terminal. A coordinated multi-front operation had begun, targeting both trade and leadership positions simultaneously. The question remained, who would hold firm when the storm hit from all sides? And which sacrifice would come first? The night had grown dense with tension. Europe and the United States had unleashed the assault they had been planning for months. Not a single strike, but a coordinated, multi-front operation. Cyber attacks aimed at Burkina Faso's trade databases, sabotage along critical transportation routes, financial manipulations targeting foreign reserves, and embedded intelligence operatives in towns near the borders. The plan was to paralyze trade, destabilize governance, and seed chaos from within. Every shadow, every whisper, every moment was calculated. Inside Ouagadougou, Captain Ibrahim Traore's command center was alive with controlled urgency. Colonel Adu Sanfo's eyes tracked real-time intelligence. Northern corridor compromised. Western shipments delayed. Proxies spotted near the Tama port. Cyber intrusions increasing exponentially. He paused, fingers hovering over the holographic maps. They're probing weaknesses on every front simultaneously. Traore's gaze was unwavering. Then we do not react. We strike with precision. Every village, every shipment, every factory becomes a front line. Pressure will become our power. Dr. Fatou Kababore coordinated with Chinese partners, confirming alternate shipping routes, backup production lines, and secure financial channels. Shipments can bypass blocked ports. Factories maintain output. Payments flow unimpeded. The system adapts faster than their attacks. Outside the capital, Burkina Faso's people were active participants. Young engineers rerouted trucks, repaired infrastructure, and monitored digital networks. Shea butter cooperatives worked double shifts, rerouting exports. Women-led trading groups maintained order and efficiency. Students documented operations, broadcasting evidence to counter misinformation. Every action, every shipment, became both defense and statement. Africa would not be coerced. The psychological front was even more insidious. Propaganda flooded radio, television, and social media warnings of economic collapse, failed Chinese partnerships, and internal betrayal. But citizens had seen real transformation. Factories humming, goods exported successfully, villages thriving, confidence hardened into resilience. Morale became a weapon. Within the command center, the tension was palpable. Intelligence suggested infiltrators among local coordinators and trusted officials. Traore addressed his inner circle. Fear and doubt are the true weapons they wield. Every shipment that arrives, every factory operating, every thriving village, these are proof against intimidation. Doubt has no place here. Colonel Adu Sanfo outlined countermeasures. Cybersecurity teams neutralize intrusions. Alternate ports and transport routes are fully operational. Local coordinators report anomalies in real time. Even if one sector is pressured, the network adapts seamlessly. Their assault is coordinated, but so is our response. Traore paced slowly. Voice firm. Trust is our armor. Redundancy is our sword. Every person, every shipment, every node of our system must function as one. If they think they can break us, they are mistaken. Africa does not falter under threats, it rises. Across the continent, African eyes followed every move. Young leaders, students, and entrepreneurs tracked shipment, production, and innovation. The domino effect was tangible. Mali and Niger monitored closely, realizing independence was achievable. Success inspired imitation. The multi-front assault intensified. Fires broke out in storage depots near the northern border. Communications lines were jammed. Cyber intrusions attempted to halt exports. Proxy forces tried to coerce local coordinators. Yet, every move was countered. Factories continued output. Villages rerouted logistics. Shipments reached China via alternate ports. Information flowed transparently, turning fear into collective confidence. Traore reflected on the human element. Leaders, engineers, women entrepreneurs. They risked everything to defend a vision of sovereignty. Every shipment reaching Shanghai, every product exported without interference, every village thriving, was a counterattack against centuries of exploitation. European and American operatives, in parallel, strategized their next escalation. Meetings in shadowed rooms, intelligence briefings, and media campaigns were all meticulously synchronized. Their intent was clear: overwhelm and isolate Burkina Faso completely. Yet, every anticipated attack met the preemptive resilience the nation had built. By dawn, reports confirmed partial success in Burkina Faso's defense. While minor disruptions occurred, shipments reached their destinations, factories continued production, and communities remained cohesive. The first wave of the multi-front assault had been repelled, yet Traore knew the battle was far from over. The real storm was imminent. As the first light of day touched Ouagadougou, a coded alert arrived. An unprecedented escalation was underway. Coordinated attacks, targeting leadership positions, critical trade hubs, and communication networks simultaneously were about to strike. The question remained: could Burkina Faso withstand the fiercest assault yet? Or would the storm finally expose cracks in the revolution? The dawn broke over Ouagadougou like a warning. The multi-front assault had escalated beyond anything Burkina Faso had faced before. Cyber attacks targeted trade databases, ports were sabotaged, communication lines jammed, and embedded operatives moved through strategic towns. Every front was active, every strike precise, and the goal was clear: fracture the nation's trade network and its leadership simultaneously. Inside the command center, Captain Ibrahim Traore's eyes scanned dozens of monitors. Colonel Adu Sanfo spoke rapidly. Northern and western corridors are compromised. Shipment diverted. Ports under sabotage. Cyber intrusions have escalated by 40%. They are synchronizing attacks across all fronts. Traore's jaw tightened. Then we respond. Not with panic, but precision. Every village, factory, and shipment is a front line. Their pressure will become our power. Dr. Fatou Kababore coordinated with Chinese partners. Alternate routes are fully operational. Factories maintain production. Payments bypass blocked channels. No single breach can stop trade. Every contingency plan is active. Her calm tone masked the urgency of the moment. Every second could decide the fate of the revolution. Outside the capital, the people were the living defense. Young engineers rerouted trucks, repaired damaged infrastructure, and reinforced digital networks. Shea butter cooperatives worked double shifts, ensuring exports reached their destinations. Women-led trading groups maintained order, rerouting shipments and coordinating deliveries. Students monitored power grids and communication lines, reporting anomalies instantly. Every village, every cooperative, every person was now part of the front line. The psychological front was as dangerous as the physical. Propaganda spread fear, claiming economic collapse, failed Chinese partnerships, and internal betrayal. Yet the people had seen transformation firsthand. Factories producing goods, successful exports, thriving villages. These were proof that the revolution was real. Confidence hardened into resilience. Morale became a weapon. Inside the command center, Traore addressed his inner circle. Fear and doubt are the weapons they wield. Every shipment that arrives, every factory operating, every thriving village. These are proof against intimidation. Doubt has no place here. Africa rises when threatened. Colonel Adu Sanfo outlined layered countermeasures. Cybersecurity teams neutralize intrusions. Alternate ports and transport routes are operational. Local coordinators report anomalies in real time. Even if one sector falls under pressure, the network adapts seamlessly. Their assault is comprehensive, but so is our defense. Traore considered the human element. Leaders, engineers, women, entrepreneurs. They risked everything. Every shipment that reached Shanghai. Every factory producing without interruption. Every village thriving was a counterstrike against centuries of exploitation. Our people are the shield, he said quietly. Our unity is our sword. Meanwhile, European and American operatives escalated further. Meetings in shadowed offices, intelligence briefings, and media campaigns orchestrated coordinated pressure. They sought to overwhelm Burkina Faso's defenses, isolate the nation, and dismantle the trade revolution. Yet each calculated attack encountered Burkina Faso's preemptive resilience. Every contingency Traore had prepared came into play. The capital remained tense. Traore moved among his team, observing operations. Factories hummed, villages communicated seamlessly, and shipments reached their destinations. The nation had not only survived the first wave, it had held the line. The combination of preparation, coordination, and collective action proved effective. Still, the stakes were high. Every strike could reveal weaknesses. Every delay could embolden the enemy. Traore gathered his inner circle for a final briefing. We've held the line, he said, voice steady. But the storm isn't over. The next hours will decide if our revolution survives intact. Every plan, every action, every heartbeat matters. The community remained alert. Villagers reinforced defenses. Youth continued monitoring networks. Women coordinated exports. Engineers repaired systems immediately. The people were both shield and sword. The unity and resilience of Burkina Faso became visible proof of their sovereignty. Just as the sun climbed fully above Ouagadougou, a coded alert flashed. Western powers had launched a concentrated, synchronized strike against leadership positions, key ports, and communication networks. Traore understood that the ultimate test had arrived. Could Burkina Faso withstand the fiercest attack yet? Or would the storm finally reveal cracks in the revolution? The morning over Ouagadougou was heavy, thick, with the kind of tension that makes the air itself feel alive. The coded alerts had confirmed it. The Western powers had launched their most aggressive, synchronized assault. Yet, multiple fronts, simultaneous attacks, targeting leadership, trade hubs, and communication networks. The storm had arrived, and it was merciless. Inside the command center, Captain Ibrahim Traore scanned dozens of monitors, each flashing updates from across the country. Colonel Adu Sanfo reported rapidly, his voice measured but urgent. Northern and western corridors are under direct sabotage. 2 major shipments delayed, ports targeted by proxy teams, cyber intrusions at 3 key logistics hubs, communication lines intermittently jammed. They are coordinating attacks on all fronts simultaneously. Traore's gaze was steely. Then we do not panic. We respond decisively. Every village, every shipment, every factory is a front line. Pressure will be our strength, not our weakness. Execute every contingency immediately. Dr. Fatou Kababore coordinated with Chinese partners. Alternate shipping routes are active. Factories maintain output. Payments flow securely via redundant channels. Cybersecurity teams have blocked more than 60% of intrusions. Every planned contingency is engaged. No single breach can halt operations. Her calm tone carried urgency beneath the surface. Every second could mean the difference between survival and collapse. Outside the capital, communities transformed into living fortresses. Young engineers repaired damaged infrastructure and rerouted trucks to bypass sabotaged roads. Shea butter cooperatives operated around the clock, ensuring exports reached their destinations. Women-led trading groups coordinated regional deliveries, using secure communications to bypass misinformation. Students monitored digital networks, power grids, and local communications lines, reporting anomalies in real time. Every citizen was a soldier in this economic battlefield. The psychological front was equally dangerous. Propaganda spread fear through radio, television, and social media. Warnings of economic collapse, failed Chinese partnerships, and internal betrayal. Yet the people had witnessed transformation firsthand. Factories producing goods, shipments reaching China, villages thriving, confidence hardened into resilience, and morale became a weapon more powerful than any threat. Within the command center, tension ran high. Reports suggested potential infiltrators among coordinators and minor officials. Traore addressed his inner circle, voice unwavering. Fear and doubt are their primary weapons. Every shipment that reaches its destination, every factory operating uninterrupted, every thriving village is proof against intimidation. Doubt has no place here. Africa rises when pressured, and we will prove it now. Colonel Adu Sanfo outlined layered countermeasures. Cybersecurity teams continue to neutralize intrusions. Alternate ports and transport routes are fully functional. Local coordinators report anomalies in real time. Even if one sector is disrupted, the network adapts seamlessly. Their assault is comprehensive, but so is our defense. Traore considered the human dimension. Leaders, engineers, women entrepreneurs, they risked everything. Every shipment reaching Shanghai, every factory producing uninterrupted, every thriving village was a counterstrike against centuries of exploitation. Our people are the shield, he murmured. Our unity is the sword. European and American operatives escalated further. High-level meetings in shadowed offices, intelligence briefings, and media campaigns coordinated simultaneous pressure across all fronts. The strategy was sophisticated, multi-layered, and relentless. Yet every planned attack met Burkina Faso's preemptive resilience. The network of villages, factories, and transport routes had anticipated every potential disruption. Across Ouagadougou and surrounding towns, the city hummed with action. Engineers patched sabotaged power lines, rerouted shipments, and restored communications. Women's cooperatives coordinated deliveries, ensuring vital exports continued. Schools and clinics operated uninterrupted. The people were both shield and sword, proving that unity and determination could counter even the most coordinated assault. By midday, reports trickled in. Minor disruptions occurred. Some shipments delayed. Some communication lines temporarily jammed. But overall, operations continued. Factories remained productive. Villages thrived. Shipments reached China. The storm had begun, but Burkina Faso had held its line. Each success reinforced the confidence of the people and inspired neighboring African nations observing closely. Traore walked among his team, observing the orchestration of a nation under fire. We have survived the first wave. But the storm is not over. Every second, every shipment, every factory, every village thriving counts. Africa will not yield. Every act, every heartbeat, every coordinated move strengthens our independence. Yet the threat remained palpable. Each second brought potential catastrophe. Each delay could embolden the enemy. Every decision carried weight beyond the individual. It could influence the fate of the revolution and the continent itself. Traore convened a final briefing. The storm has begun. It tests our limits. But we hold every victory, every successful shipment, every thriving village is proof that Africa is unbreakable. And we will multiply those victories. As evening descended over Ouagadougou, a coded alert arrived. Western powers had launched a concentrated strike, targeting leadership, key ports, and communications simultaneously. Traore understood the apex of the storm had arrived. The next hours would determine not only the survival of Burkina Faso's revolution, but the future of Africa's awakening. The sun had barely cleared the horizon when the full magnitude of the assault struck. Western powers had synchronized their offensive, simultaneous cyber attacks, sabotage at multiple ports, infiltration of leadership networks, and a barrage of disinformation campaigns. For the first time, Burkina Faso faced a storm on every possible front: physical, digital, psychological. The nation's resolve would be tested like never before. Inside the command center, Captain Ibrahim Traore stood over the holographic maps, absorbing data from every corner of the country. Colonel Adu Sanfo's voice was precise, urgent. Western proxies have sabotaged northern supply routes. 2 major ports are under disruption. Cyber intrusions target trade and banking systems. Communication lines intermittently down. Intelligence indicates agents are moving toward key leadership locations. They are hitting us with unprecedented coordination. Traore's eyes narrowed. Then we move decisively. Every village, every shipment, every factory is a defensive front. Pressure will become our strength, not our weakness. We will respond with precision. Dr. Fatou Kababore coordinated with Chinese partners, ensuring secure channels for payments and shipments. Alternate routes are operational. Factories maintain production. Cybersecurity teams are neutralizing intrusions. Redundant communication lines are active. Every contingency is in motion. Her calm tone hid the intensity of the moment. Failure was not an option. Outside the capital, Burkina Faso's citizens became the backbone of defense. Engineers repaired, sabotaged infrastructure. Villages rerouted shipments to bypass blockades. Shea butter cooperatives worked through the night to maintain exports. Women-led trade groups orchestrated deliveries with surgical precision. Students and young tech specialists monitored energy grids and digital networks, reporting anomalies instantly. Every citizen was a cog in a living, breathing defense network. The psychological battle raged in parallel. Disinformation campaigns attempted to erode confidence. Warnings of economic collapse, failed Chinese partnerships, and the possibility of betrayal within the government. Yet citizens had witnessed tangible results. Factories produced. Goods reached international markets. Villages flourished. Confidence hardened into resilience. Morale became a weapon. Inside the command center, tension ran high. Intelligence hinted at infiltrators among coordinators and officials. Traore addressed his inner circle, voice unwavering. Fear and doubt are their weapons. Every shipment that reaches China, every factory, operating uninterrupted, every thriving village is proof against intimidation. Doubt has no place here. Africa rises under pressure, and we will demonstrate it now. Colonel Adu Sanfo outlined layered countermeasures. Cybersecurity teams neutralize intrusions. Alternate ports and transport routes remain functional. Local coordinators report anomalies in real time. Even if one sector falters, the network adapts. Their attack is sophisticated, but our preemptive measures are comprehensive. Traore reflected on the human dimension. Leaders, engineers, women entrepreneurs risked everything. Every shipment reaching Shanghai, every factory producing uninterrupted, every thriving village was a counterstrike against centuries of exploitation. Our people are the shield, he murmured. Our unity is the sword. European and American operatives escalated further. Meetings in shadowed offices, intelligence briefings, and media campaigns synchronized operations across borders. Their objective: destabilize, isolate, and cripple Burkina Faso. Yet each maneuver collided with the nation's preemptive resilience. The network of villages, factories, and transport routes had anticipated disruption, and adaptive measures mitigated potential chaos. Across Ouagadougou and surrounding towns, the city pulsed with activity. Engineers patched sabotage, rerouted shipments, and restored communication lines. Shea butter cooperatives maintained operations. Women-led trading groups ensured continuity of exports. Schools and clinics functioned normally. The nation had not only survived, but actively countered the onslaught, proving that unity and preparation could withstand even the fiercest assault. By midday, reports confirmed partial success in the defense. Minor disruptions occurred, yet the core of trade and governance remained intact. Shipments reached international markets. Factories produced above expected output. Villages continued thriving. The storm had begun, yet Burkina Faso held its ground. Each victory reinforced the confidence of citizens and inspired neighboring African nations. Observing closely, Traore walked through the command center, observing the orchestration of a nation under siege. "We have held the line," he said, voice steady. "But the storm is not over. Every shipment, every factory, every village thriving is a victory. Africa will not yield. Every act, every heartbeat, every coordinated move strengthens our independence." The stakes were clear. Each strike could expose vulnerabilities. Every misstep could cost lives and credibility. Traore convened a final briefing with his inner circle. The apex of the storm is here. Every plan, every action, every heartbeat matters. We will hold, we will adapt, and we will prove to the world that Africa can stand unbowed. Untitled, a coded alert arrived. A concentrated strike on key leadership positions and major trade hubs was imminent. The next hours would determine not only the survival of Burkina Faso's revolution, but the very future of Africa's awakening. Traore knew that history itself hung in the balance. The night had passed, leaving Ouagadougou in an eerie calm. The apex strike had come and gone, leaving a trail of chaos and tension, but Burkina Faso had endured. The full scale of the assault was visible. Disrupted shipments, damaged infrastructure, cyber intrusions partially mitigated, and rumors of betrayal circulating in whispers. Yet the nation had not fallen. Every village, factory, and cooperative that continued functioning was proof of resilience. Inside the command center, Captain Ibrahim Traore stood before a wall of screens displaying real-time reports. Colonel Adu Sanfo summarized the aftermath. Northern shipments delayed, but rerouted successfully. Cyber intrusions blocked or neutralized. Southern port sabotage contained. No leadership positions compromised. Proxies neutralized or tracked. Overall operations sustained. He exhaled slowly. They tested us in every way, but the network held. Traore nodded, eyes scanning the maps. This storm was the ultimate test. Every front, every attack, every whisper of doubt, our people faced it and proved that Burkina Faso cannot be intimidated. Yet the danger is far from over. Recovery is only the first step. We must anticipate what comes next. Dr. Fatou Kababore reported on financial and trade resilience. Alternate routes ensured exports reached China. Factories maintained production despite sabotage. Payments through secure channels remained uninterrupted. Contingencies were activated seamlessly. The economy endured, but stress points remain. Repairs and vigilance are required. Outside, communities were assessing the physical and social impact. Villages repaired damaged roads. Ports cleared blockades. And cooperatives resumed operations. Women-led trade networks reorganized schedules to maintain continuity. Students and young engineers documented damage and devised new strategies for resilience. Across the nation, the people themselves had become a living infrastructure, bridging gaps and reinforcing continuity. The psychological effects were notable. Western propaganda had spread fear, yet the real story: successful defense, operational continuity, and thriving communities dominated conversations. Confidence, once fragile, solidified into collective determination. Morale became a tangible force, reinforcing the revolution's momentum. Inside the inner circle, tension was mixed with cautious relief. Traore addressed his team. The storm tested our limits. It revealed vulnerabilities and highlighted strengths. Every successful operation, every uninterrupted shipment, every village that functioned under pressure is a victory. But vigilance is still required. They will not relent. We must rebuild, reinforce, and prepare for the next wave. Colonel Adu Sanfo analyzed lesson learned. Cybersecurity protocols need upgrades. Alternate routes must be further expanded. Village-level coordination requires continuous drills. Propaganda countermeasures must be amplified. Our strength lies in adaptation and redundancy. Both proved essential. Traore reflected on the human dimension. Leaders, engineers, women entrepreneurs, and ordinary citizens had all contributed to resilience. Every shipment that reached Shanghai, every factory that maintained output, every thriving village was a counterstrike against centuries of exploitation. Our people are the shield. Our unity is the sword, he murmured, internalizing the courage and commitment he witnessed. Meanwhile, intelligence reports indicated that Western powers were regrouping, analyzing the effects of the apex strike, and planning the next escalation. They had underestimated Burkina Faso's preemptive resilience and coordination, but their intent remained: destabilize, isolate, and pressure the nation economically and politically. Despite the external threats, the internal impact of success was significant. Young Africans across the nation and continent were inspired by the demonstration of strategic resilience. The domino effect was spreading. Mali, Niger, and other nations were observing, assessing, and considering similar strategies for economic independence. Traore's actions had transcended borders, igniting a continental awakening. Communities, too, were documenting and celebrating their achievements. Social media platforms were filled with stories of innovation, cooperation, and triumph. Factories produced beyond expectations. Villages maintained local governance and trade. Educational programs continued, with youth engaged in monitoring, logistics, and technological adaptation. The people had become both shield and sword, living proof that independence was not merely political rhetoric, it was achievable. Traore convened his inner circle once more. We have survived the apex strike, but the storm is not fully past. We must consolidate gains, repair damage, and fortify networks. Africa's future depends on our vigilance, our strategy, and our ability to inspire. As night fell over Ouagadougou, intelligence detected subtle signs of a new operation, forming smaller in scale, but potentially more insidious, targeting economic infrastructure and community leadership simultaneously. Traore knew that even after surviving the apex strike, the nation would face another critical test, and the real battle for lasting independence was only beginning. The morning light revealed a city scarred but unbroken. Ouagadougou bore the marks of the apex strike: damaged roads, disrupted supply chains, and strained communication lines. But the nation's spirit remained intact. Captain Ibrahim Traore surveyed the city from the command center, eyes scanning reports that detailed the extent of both destruction and resilience. Colonel Adu Sanfo spoke swiftly. Northern shipments delayed, but rerouted successfully. Ports partially damaged, but operations continue. Cyber intrusions contained, communications restored. We have endured, but vulnerabilities must be addressed immediately. Traore nodded, his jaw tight. Survival alone is not enough. We rebuild, we fortify, we improve. Every failure is a lesson. Every success is proof. We must turn this assault into an opportunity to strengthen our infrastructure, our trade network, and our communities. Dr. Fatou Kababore outlined the strategic priorities. First, all trade routes must be reinforced and redundancies expanded. Second, cybersecurity protocols require immediate upgrades. Third, local coordinators across every village and town need drills to respond to sabotage, misinformation, and cyber threats. Fourth, economic activity must continue without interruption. Factories, cooperatives, and markets must be operational. Outside, Burkina Faso's people became the living machinery of the rebuild. Young engineers repaired roads, reinforced bridges, and ensured transport systems functioned efficiently. Women-led cooperatives organized labor, coordinated shipments, and implemented contingency plans. Villages established emergency communication networks, creating a mesh of rapid reporting to central command. Students assisted with monitoring energy grids, cybersecurity, and logistics, turning learning into active defense. The psychological rebuild was equally important. After the apex strike, fear lingered in whispers. Fueled by propaganda, Traore understood that morale was as vital as infrastructure. We show our people that every challenge strengthens us. Every shipment delivered, every factory producing, every village thriving is proof of our resilience. Doubt has no place here, he said to his team. Colonel Adu Sanfo emphasized the role of redundancy. Every shipment, every factory, every port must have backups. If one fails, another continues. If one village is disrupted, others compensate. The network adapts. Flexibility is our defense. Coordination is our strength. Traore walked through the city, observing factories, ports, and villages. Shea butter, cooperatives operated without pause. Local markets overflowed with goods. Engineers repaired digital networks and energy lines. Schools and clinics remained functional. The people themselves were both shield and sword, embodying resilience. Dr. Kababor added a long-term perspective. Beyond immediate repairs, we must institutionalize resilience. Training programs for youth, women, and engineers. Technology transfer from Chinese partners accelerated. Alternate routes, cyber defenses, and community coordination systems must become permanent. Traore paused, considering the human dimension. Leaders, engineers, women entrepreneurs, students, they had all contributed to survival. Every shipment that reached China, every factory that maintained output, every thriving village was a victory against centuries of exploitation. Our people are the shield. Our unity is the sword, he said quietly, internalizing the courage around him. The intelligence reports indicated Western powers were regrouping, analyzing the apex strike, and planning further operations. Their intent remained: destabilize Burkina Faso, isolate it economically, and pressure leadership politically. Traore understood that the rebuild was not just physical but strategic, a proactive adaptation to future attacks. Communities documented their progress and shared successes widely. Social media platforms and local networks highlighted operational continuity, inspiring confidence, and countering disinformation. Factories exceeded production targets. Villages re-established local governance. Educational programs flourished, equipping youth to participate in logistics, monitoring, and innovation. The people were both shield and sword, turning survival into empowerment. Traore convened his inner circle for the evening briefing. We have survived. We have rebuilt. But the storm is not fully over. Every shipment, every factory, every village thriving is a testament to our resilience. We must continue fortifying networks, strengthening coordination, and inspiring confidence. Africa depends on our vigilance and strategy. As night fell over Ouagadougou, coded alerts indicated subtle but coordinated movements near economic hubs and leadership centers in surrounding regions. A new, more insidious operation was forming, designed to test the limits of Burkina Faso's strategic rebuild. Traore realized that while the nation had endured the apex strike, the true battle for lasting independence was just beginning. The morning sun rose over Ouagadougou, casting long shadows on streets still echoing with the aftermath of recent assaults. Yet, the air was different now, charged with determination, confidence, and a tangible sense of purpose. Captain Ibrahim Traore understood that the survival and strategic rebuild of Burkina Faso had already sent ripples across the continent. The story of resilience was no longer contained within borders. It was spreading like wildfire, Inside the command center, Traore reviewed incoming reports from neighboring nations. Mali, Niger, Chad, and Guinea were observing closely, analyzing every tactical move, every defensive success. Leaders whispered about the audacity of Burkina Faso, the strength of its unity, and the proof that independence was possible even under the pressure of global powers. Colonel Adusanfo pointed to satellite feeds. Social media metrics show unprecedented engagement. Youth in 12 neighboring countries are actively following our trade routes, production updates, and recovery strategies. Discussions about economic sovereignty and self-reliance are trending in multiple languages. They are learning from our model. Traore's eyes softened, but his voice remained firm. This is more than trade or infrastructure. This is a message to the continent. Africa does not need to kneel. Our resources, our people, our ingenuity are sufficient. Every success, every shipment, every village thriving is proof that we can define our own destiny. Dr. Fatou Kabarbore added context. Economic indicators are already inspiring change. Mali announced negotiations for a $1.8 billion mining partnership with China, bypassing European intermediaries. Niger is pursuing uranium processing deals with Asian partners. The domino effect is real, and the continent is beginning to believe that independence is achievable. Outside, communities within Burkina Faso mirrored this continental awakening. Villages repaired roads, reopened schools, and ramped up cooperative production. Young engineers collaborated with women-led trade groups to optimize shipments. Students created content for social media, documenting success stories to inspire peers across borders. Every act of resilience within the nation became a lesson for the continent. The psychological impact was profound. For decades, African nations had been told that survival depended on Western approval. Now, for the first time in modern history, an alternative model existed. Confidence replaced fear. Hope replaced doubt. Young Africans were learning that economic autonomy was achievable when leadership acted decisively and communities united. Traore walked among his inner circle, observing their dedication. "We are not just defending Burkina Faso," he said. "We are teaching Africa to stand. Every lesson we create, every network we fortify, every shipment that reaches its destination contributes to the continental awakening. Our people's courage is contagious." Colonel Adusanfo summarized the continental ripple effect. Trade agreements are being considered, not imposed. Young entrepreneurs are launching import-export initiatives inspired by our model. Universities across the region are revising curricula to emphasize African-led economic strategies. The message is clear. Independence is not just possible. It is happening. Traore paused, reflecting on the human dimension. Leaders, engineers, women entrepreneurs, students each contributed to the growing wave of confidence. Every factory operating, every shipment reaching China, every thriving village was a testament to courage and vision. "Africa is awake," he murmured, "and there is no turning back." Meanwhile, intelligence reports indicated that Western powers were closely monitoring the ripple effect. Panic was evident in European capitals, and Washington. Analysts acknowledged that Burkina Faso's model had become a blueprint for economic sovereignty. Efforts to intimidate or destabilize were being scrutinized for their potential to backfire, strengthening the resolve of other nations. The psychological warfare continued, but the message of resilience overshadowed it. Social media, community networks, and independent media amplified the narrative. African resources should serve African people. Educational content and practical demonstrations of trade independence reached millions, inspiring a generation to believe in self-determination. By evening, Traore convened his inner circle. The continent is watching. Every action we take sends a signal beyond our borders. We must remain vigilant, continue rebuilding, and fortify networks. But we must also celebrate the impact we've had. Africa is learning that sovereignty is achievable. And it starts with one bold decision, one unified effort, one nation refusing to bow. Night fell. A subtle alert reached the command center. Intelligence suggested emerging coordination among multiple African nations considering similar trade pivots. But whispers indicated that Western powers were planning a counter-strategy To suppress this continental momentum, Traore knew that while the awakening had begun, the coming months would decide whether Africa could truly seize its independence or face renewed pressure from the world's most powerful actors. The evening sky over Ouagadougou was calm, almost deceptively peaceful. But far beyond the horizon, Western capitals were anything but calm. Intelligence reports from Burkina Faso's command center confirmed suspicions European and American powers were coordinating a sophisticated counter-strategy designed to suppress the ripple effects of Burkina Faso's trade independence and contain the continental awakening. Inside the command center, Captain Ibrahim Traore's eyes scanned multiple feeds. Colonel Adu Sanfo spoke, voice steady but urgent. Satellite data shows increased movements near neighboring borders. Financial institutions in Europe are preparing new sanctions. Propaganda campaigns are intensifying, targeting our trade achievements and leadership credibility. They are coordinating both soft and hard power initiatives simultaneously. Traore's expression hardened. Then we act before they act. Every village, factory, and shipment is a front line. Every citizen is a soldier. Our network has already proven resilient, but vigilance and preemptive action will define the next phase. Dr. Fatou Kababore relayed updates from Chinese partners. Alternate trade routes remain operational. Financial systems are secure. Cybersecurity teams are actively monitoring intrusions. Coordination with local communities has never been tighter. Every contingency for Western interference is engaged. Beyond the command center, Burkina Faso's citizens continued to fortify the nation's resilience. Young engineers reinforced infrastructure and transport networks. Shea butter cooperatives adjusted schedules to ensure uninterrupted exports. Women led trade networks, optimized logistics. Students monitored energy grids, cybersecurity systems, and local communications. Every citizen acted as a node in the living defense network. The psychological front was critical. European and American propaganda sought to destabilize confidence. Warnings of economic disaster, failed partnerships, and internal betrayal circulated on social media and broadcast networks, yet citizens had already witnessed transformation. Factory producing, goods reaching China, villages thriving, confidence hardened into resolve. Morale became a weapon stronger than any threat. Inside the command center, Traore addressed his inner circle. They seek to intimidate through fear, misinformation, and coercion. Every shipment delivered, every factory operational, every village thriving counters their narrative. Doubt has no place here. Africa is learning that independence is achievable. Colonel Adu Sanfo outlined multi-layered countermeasures. Cyber intrusions are monitored in real time. Alternate ports and transport routes are operational. Local coordinators report anomalies immediately. Even if one sector falters, the system adapts seamlessly. Their strategy is comprehensive. But our preemptive planning has neutralized key points of attack. Traore reflected on the human dimension. Leaders, engineers, women entrepreneurs, and students had all contributed to resilience. Every shipment reaching Shanghai, every factory, maintaining output, every thriving village was a testament to courage, foresight, and unity. Our people are both shield and sword, he murmured. We protect our sovereignty and inspire the continent simultaneously. Meanwhile, intelligence suggested Western powers were designing economic pressure campaigns, diplomatic isolation strategies, and covert operations in neighboring African nations. Analysts acknowledged that Burkina Faso's model had become a blueprint for trade independence. Efforts to intimidate or destabilize risked backfiring, potentially strengthening the resolve of other nations. Across Africa, observers monitored the unfolding scenario. Mali, Niger, and Guinea studied Burkina Faso's logistics, trade networks, and community coordination. Young entrepreneurs, students, and civic leaders were inspired. Social media amplified success stories, documenting uninterrupted trade and thriving communities. The continental ripple effect continued, and the Western counter-strategy faced a paradox. Suppressing Burkina Faso risked igniting further determination across Africa. Traore convened his inner circle for a briefing. The West is reacting predictably to the ripple effect of our independence. Their resources, influence, and propaganda are formidable, but they cannot stop a united, adaptive, and determined nation. We must reinforce networks, maintain vigilance, and continue inspiring our people and neighbors. Africa is learning that sovereignty is achievable, and we must lead by example. Outside, communities continued to repair infrastructure, reroute shipments, and maintain production. Engineers innovated to circumvent disruptions. Women-led cooperatives coordinated deliveries. Students contributed to monitoring and reporting. Every individual became a strategic participant, a node, in a resilient network designed to withstand pressure from external forces. The command center hummed with coordination. Traore's voice was resolute. The Western counter has begun, but it is a test, not a threat. Every challenge we overcome strengthens our model and inspires the continent. Africa will not bow. Our networks, communities, and resolve are unbreakable. Night fell over Ouagadougou. A subtle but urgent alert arrived. Intelligence suggested that Western powers were planning simultaneous political and economic maneuvers targeting Burkina Faso's allies across the continent. Traore understood that the next phase would not only challenge national resilience, but could decide the fate of Africa's economic independence. The question loomed: could Burkina Faso and its continental supporters withstand the next coordinated assault, or would the Western counter finally fracture the momentum? The dawn broke over Ouagadougou with an electric intensity, as if the sun itself sensed the magnitude of the moment. After months of attacks, multi-front assaults, and relentless pressure from Western powers, the decisive confrontation had arrived. Every shipment, every factory, every village, every citizen had become part of the battlefield. Captain Ibrahim Traore understood that today would define the survival of Burkina Faso's revolution and potentially the future of African independence. Inside the command center, screens flickered with real-time intelligence. Colonel du Sanfo reported rapidly. Northern supply lines are under renewed scrutiny. Western proxies have attempted to infiltrate southern ports. Cyber attacks target financial systems, banking operations, and logistics simultaneously. Communication channels are being jammed intermittently. Multiple nations are observing every move, anticipating our response. Traore's gaze hardened. Then we act decisively. Every village, every shipment, every factory is a front line. Pressure will become our power, not our weakness. We will confront this storm, not just survive it. Dr. Fatou Kababore coordinated with Chinese partners, confirming operational security. Alternate routes are functioning. Factories maintain production. Payments flow securely. Cybersecurity defenses are active. Contingency plans engage automatically if any intrusion succeeds. Her voice carried the authority of expertise, but the tension was palpable. Beyond the command center, Burkina Faso's people were on high alert. Engineers repaired disrupted infrastructure and optimized transport networks. Women-led cooperatives coordinated shipments and deliveries with surgical precision. Students monitored power grids, digital networks, and communications lines. Every citizen had become a node in a living defense network. The psychological front remained critical. Western propaganda attempted to erode confidence. Predictions of economic collapse, accusations of mismanagement, and rumors of betrayal circulated widely. Yet citizens had already witnessed transformation. Factory producing, goods exported, villages thriving. Confidence hardened into resolve, and morale became a force more powerful than any threat. Traore addressed his inner circle. Voice unwavering. Fear and doubt are the tools they wield. Every shipment delivered. Every factory operational. Every village thriving counters their narrative. Doubt has no place here. Africa rises under pressure. Today, we show them the strength of unity, strategy, and determination. Colonel Adu Sanfo outlined layered countermeasures. Cybersecurity teams continue neutralizing intrusions. Alternate ports and transport routes are operational. Local coordinators report anomalies in real time. Even if one sector falters, the network adapts seamlessly. Their assault is coordinated, but our preparation exceeds their reach. Traore reflected on the human dimension. Leaders, engineers, women entrepreneurs, and students had contributed to resilience. Every shipment reaching international markets, every factory producing uninterrupted, every thriving village was a counterattack against centuries of exploitation. Our people are the shield. Our unity is the sword, he whispered, internalizing the courage surrounding him. European and American operatives escalated further. High-level meetings in shadowed offices, intelligence briefings, and media campaigns orchestrated simultaneous pressure across borders. Their objective: destabilize, isolate, and fracture Burkina Faso's network. Yet every maneuver collided with the nation's preemptive resilience. Adaptive measures mitigated chaos, ensuring operational continuity. Across Ouagadougou and surrounding towns, the city hummed with coordinated activity. Engineers patched sabotage, rerouted shipments, and restored communication lines. Shea butter cooperatives maintained exports. Women-led trading groups ensured logistical continuity. Schools and clinics functioned normally. The nation had not only survived previous assaults, it actively countered them, proving that preparation, unity, and adaptability were stronger than intimidation. By midday, intelligence confirmed that Western powers were simultaneously attempting diplomatic and economic interventions targeting Burkina Faso's regional allies. Traore's strategic decisions were critical. Any hesitation could cascade into disruption across the continent. He convened his inner circle. This is the decisive confrontation. Every plan, every action, every heartbeat matters. We hold our ground. We maintain morale, and we continue to inspire confidence across the continent. Africa is watching. Our victory will resonate far beyond our borders. Communities reinforced infrastructure, rerouted logistics, and maintained production. Engineers optimized systems. Women's cooperatives coordinated deliveries. Students monitored digital networks. Each individual played a strategic role in sustaining the nation's sovereignty. Traore walked through the command center, observing the orchestration of a nation under siege. Today, we define not just the fate of Burkina Faso, but the future of African independence. Every shipment, every factory, every village thriving is proof of our resilience, and we will multiply those victories. Osh evening fell. Intelligence intercepted whispers of a clandestine plan targeting both regional allies and internal leadership. Traore knew the coming night would test every ounce of strategy, courage, and unity. The decisive confrontation had begun, but whether the revolution would emerge intact or be fractured remained unknown. The sun rose slowly over Ouagadougou, casting golden light on a city scarred but unbroken. The decisive confrontation had passed. For hours, Burkina Faso had faced the most coordinated, relentless assaults in its history. Cyber intrusions, sabotage, proxy operations, and a barrage of psychological warfare. Yet the nation had endured. The storm had tested every system, every strategy, every citizen, and through it all, resilience had prevailed. Captain Ibrahim Traore surveyed the city from the command center, eyes scanning live feeds from ports, factories, and villages. Colonel Adu Sanfo reported with cautious relief. Northern supply lines stabilized, ports operational, cyber intrusions blocked or neutralized, alternate shipping routes fully functional. Local coordinators reporting minimal disruption. The apex of the assault has passed, but vigilance remains critical. Traore nodded, jaw tight. We have survived, but survival alone is not enough. We must analyze the cost, understand the vulnerabilities, and fortify what has been tested. Every challenge is a lesson. Every victory, a blueprint for the future. Dr. Fatou Kababo summarized the economic and logistical aftermath. Factories maintained production despite sabotage. Exports continued, albeit with minor delays. Digital networks recovered. Communities remain engaged and coordinated. The infrastructure is intact, but will require strategic reinforcement. Lessons learned today will shape our resilience for decades. Outside, the citizens were actively rebuilding and celebrating their endurance. Young engineers repaired roads, reinforced bridges, and optimized logistics networks. Shea butter cooperatives resumed operations at full capacity. Women-led trade groups coordinated deliveries efficiently. Students documented operations and shared lessons online. Every village, every factory, every shipment was both recovery and proof of determination. The psychological impact was profound. Western powers had attempted to instill fear through propaganda, predictions of economic collapse, rumors of betrayal, and warnings of failed partnerships. Yet citizens had witnessed the opposite: functioning factories, successful exports, thriving villages. Confidence hardened into resilience, and morale became a weapon. The people of Burkina Faso now believed in their collective power. Inside the command center, Traore addressed his inner circle. The storm has passed, but the fight for independence is ongoing. Every shipment, every factory, every thriving village proves that our strategy works. But we must fortify, educate, and inspire. Our victory today is not only military or economic, it is psychological, it is cultural, it is continental. Colonel Adu Sanfou analyzed lesson learned. Redundancy in transport and communication proved decisive. Cybersecurity upgrades mitigated intrusions. Community coordination prevented sabotage from spreading. Psychological preparedness neutralized propaganda. Each layer of defense was essential, and each will be strengthened further. Traore reflected on the human cost and achievement. Leaders, engineers, women entrepreneurs, students all had contributed to resilience. Every shipment reaching Shanghai, every factory producing uninterrupted, every thriving village was a victory against centuries of exploitation. Our people are the shield, he murmured. Our unity is the sword. Meanwhile, intelligence indicated that Western powers were recalibrating, planning new strategies to counter the ripple effect across Africa. However, their attempts were now closely monitored. Analysts acknowledged that Burkina Faso had created a model of sovereignty and resilience, proving that African nations could operate independently of Western control. The continental impact was already visible. Neighboring nations studied Burkina Faso's strategy closely. Mali, Niger, and Guinea considered similar trade agreements with Asian partners. Youth and entrepreneurs across Africa engaged in discussions about economic sovereignty, technological development, and the power of community coordination. Social media amplified these stories, reaching millions, inspiring a new generation to believe that Africa could lead its own development. Traore convened his inner circle one last time before sunset. We have survived the apex strike. We have rebuilt. We have inspired. But vigilance remains essentielle. Africa is watching. Our example is setting a precedent. Independence is possible when leadership acts decisively and the people unite. This is only the beginning. Outside, communities celebrated quietly, yet purposefully. Factories operated at full capacity. Schools reopened, integrating practical lessons about logistics, technology, and trade. Women-led cooperatives expanded their networks. Young engineers and students worked to strengthen infrastructure and digital systems. Every act of reconstruction was simultaneously an act of empowerment. The human stories were the most profound. Aminata Sawado, the shea butter entrepreneur, now expanded her cooperative, employing more women than ever and exporting directly to Asia. Engineers who once feared unemployment were now designing resilient systems. Students dreamed of international partnerships without leaving their homeland. The $1 billion trade pivot had not just survived, it had transformed lives. Untitled. Intelligence detected subtle signals of emerging continental coordination. Other African nations were inspired, considering similar pivots in trade and technological partnership, but whispers suggested Western powers were already devising more subtle, sophisticated strategies to contain this momentum. Traore understood that while today marked a historic victory, the journey toward lasting African independence was far from complete. The next chapter for the continent had begun, one where vigilance, unity, and courage would decide the fate of nations.